Game-sealing touchdown with 1:48 left. Denver spoiled a career-best performance by Jameis Winston. He threw for a franchise record 497 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also got picked off 3 times, 2 of which were returned by the Broncos for touchdowns. On the other side, Bo Nix, 18 of 35, passing 294 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Cleveland drops to 3-9-0 with the loss, while the Broncos improve to 8-5-0. They're now riding a 3-game winning streak. Now Denver gets to rest up. They've got a bye and will host Indianapolis on December the 15th, while the Browns head to Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Hard to believe that Christmas is only a couple of weeks away, right? But there's still plenty of time to find incredible gift deals because Macy's Friends and Family Sale is happening now. What does that mean? It means when you use your coupon or Macy's card, you can take an extra 30% off, just like Friends and Family can. That's 30% off the best holiday gifts, 30% off the best designer brands, 30% off what's trending right now. It's just this week. It's just what you were looking for, and it's only at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
This holiday season, Straight Talk Wireless is letting you say yes a lot more with real unlimited data. Yes to sharing pics of the ugliest holiday sweaters. Yes to checking weather on the go for surprise sledding trips. And with a free phone at sign up, let the yes-tivities begin.
No way!
Yes way. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart or straighttalk.com. Offer valid through 1/5/25 while supplies last at participating stores. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-store activation on select single-line plans. Limit of 2 phones per customer. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com.
No way football is playing in the fall and winter because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
We welcome you to Football Full Circle, live right here on FFC, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. It is a Tuesday to look back on the Monday Night Football finale of week number 13. And when 1 week in the NFL concludes, a new week is not all that far away and on the horizon. Only 5 weeks remain in this National Football League regular season in 2024. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. Together here for an hour up until 1 p.m. Eastern to look back on Monday night, Scott. The outlook following Week 13, some of the changing markets around those Super Bowl contending teams, and, of course, all the NFL news and notes at the end of 1 week to set up the next. That's our charge here today on Football Full Circle.
Yeah, I know a lot of talk is going to center around Jameis Winston, right? I did think it was funny last night, Ben, when when Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were, throwing out all these accolades towards Jameis Winston, and he should be the starter and this and that. It's like every single time they started singing his praises, he would throw a pick six or at least an interception anyway, and then it went deathly silent. There was never ever going back to maybe he's not really that good. That's Jameis Winston, right? I mean, I say it all the time. These guys that are in the league, they're in the league because they have some talent, but they're also backups because they can't have that talent consistently. So he imploded. We all know that. We'll break it all down. But I'll tell you, really, the story is the Denver Broncos to me. They're 6-0 now, Ben, straight up against the spread as favorites. They're 8-5. Bo Nix has made great strides in this season. Looks like he's going to be the real deal. And I keep on waiting for the Broncos to fall back and allow the Dolphins and the Colts and the Bengals, had they won this weekend, to kind of catch up. But here they sit at 8-5, and a field goal away from really being 9-4 and beating the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. But we all know what happened there. But still, good job by the Broncos last night. I didn't think they would. I thought they might win, but I wasn't comfortable laying 6.5. That's for sure. But in the end, with that last interception by Winston, they even cover the spread.
Yeah, Scott, a lot of things entering last night that did actually come to fruition. Denver entered as the best favorite team in the NFL, a perfect 5-0 against the number, covering by an average margin of nearly 2 touchdowns per game, entering the Monday night finale in Mile High. And that came through because of the Jameis Winston experience that we anticipated we might see at altitude. And it lived up to that billing as it has throughout his National Football League career. 58 pass attempts, 497 yards, 4 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions, including 2 pick sixes. 1 in the final 2 minutes of regulation, Scott, that proved incredibly costly as Cleveland was trying to drive the length of the field to maybe even set up a game-winning field goal try. Instead, it was picked off by Denver's defensive back, Jaquan McMillan, and taken back the entirety of the other way. 6 touchdown tosses, if you want to consider it like that, for Jameis Winston last night. It just so happened that 2 were to the Denver Broncos. 41-32, the final score at Mile High last night. The Broncos pick up win number 8 of the year, and because of that last pick 6 and another late interception in the end zone, the Broncos hold on for a cover as a 6.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, listen, there's never a good time for a pick 6, right? But that said, even the other one, Ben, the first one, just before halftime, when they're driving down the field and they have a chance to take the lead and get the ball back to start the second half, and he throws a pick 6. Now, they end up coming back down the field and scoring a touchdown, but that touchdown should have been, we're leading at halftime touchdown, not, okay, we're still down 1 score. So, yeah, it's just that's Jameis Winston, right? I mean, you think you got something in him, and you do. Remember the days with Tampa Bay? He was colorblind. I don't know what excuse he's going to use now, but they did. They used that as an excuse. Like, they realized for some goofy reason it took him forever, but supposedly he was colorblind. But, he's just not a regular starting quarterback. Great backup. Can come in for a game or two, but I don't know why they went against the run. I could see going into that game, Ben, thinking, all right, we got to throw the ball. We can't run against this Bronco defense. But they were having some success running the ball. I would have run the ball a little bit more, but it's the Browns.
In fact, last night it was actually the Broncos that outgained the Browns on the ground, despite Cleveland outgaining Denver in the game by more than 150 yards. 952 total yards between the pair of clubs last night. 73 total points, skying over a total of 41 and a hook. Scott, in the Broncos' 6 games as a favorite, not only have they covered in all 6, not only are they covering by an average margin now of 12 points per game, they have also gone over in 5 of 6. The only game Denver has gone under as a favorite was about a month ago at home against Atlanta, where the Broncos scored 38 and the Falcons only registered 6, so it stayed under a total of 44 and a hook by that half point. And that's not necessarily how Denver wants to win a football game in a high-scoring, wild, and chaotic shootout. They trust their defense, and technically, the defense did lead to 14 points last night. But, Scott, this was the second-best scoring defense in the National Football League entering last night, allowing less than 17 points per game. Jameis Winston and the Browns really had their way with that Denver secondary. That was shorthanded. Patrick Surtain II is back for Denver, but on the opposing side, Riley Moss, the young cornerback out of Iowa, who has had a sensational second season in the NFL, missed last night with an ankle injury, and you could tell. And speaking of a return to altitude, Jerry Jeudy, 9 grabs, 235 yards, and a touchdown. That prolific connection has only been on the upswing since Jameis Winston took over as the starter, making his 5th start for the Browns last night.
Yeah, and listen, you look at the numbers, whether it's scoring, whether it's passing yards, whether it's just total offense, it's night and day with Jameis Winston or Joe Flacco or any other backup quarterback for the most part versus Deshaun Watson. I mean, really, the numbers are remarkable. So they had their way last night, but they just, they flubbed up. It's not the type of performance you want out of the Broncos when you start thinking, okay, playoffs, and can they compete against Baltimore and Kansas City and some of the others? But I'll throw this out as an anomaly that just, it was goofy. Although I don't know how, somewhere along the line, someone's got to say on that defensive side of the ball, like, all right, we got to cover Jerry Jeudy, guys, all right? The zone defense or whoever's doing it, if you need help, we got to do something. Those passes, for the most part, Ben, he was wide open. It's not like he was battling 2 guys and was coming down with the ball. He was wide open on most of those passes.
There was one later in the game, Scott, where Cleveland was trying to drive to take that lead before Jameis eventually threw the interception, where Jerry Jeudy on a deep crossing pattern was by himself. It's like they forgot that he was even playing in the game. So a prolific night from the yardage component for the Browns, Jameis Winston and Jerry Jeudy. but the 9th loss of this season for Cleveland. They are 3-9, and only one cover, Scott, in any of the 9 L's the Browns have taken this year. We'll talk a little bit more about Cleveland and their outlook moving forward, because you really can't debate, as you alluded to, how much better this team is when Deshaun Watson has not played quarterback in the last 3 years for the Browns. Joe Flacco leading them to 11 wins and a playoff berth a season ago. Even Jameis Winston, in the 5 starts he has made, sure, the Browns have only won 2 straight, but how he elevates that Kevin Stefanski offense. And again, it's the Jameis Winston experience. 4 of the 5 starts he has made for Cleveland under center have hit the over. But Scott, as you said, the story is really the Broncos. It felt like through some of the year they were winning games against bad teams, but they would kind of taper off. 8-5 now for Denver, entering their bye week this upcoming weekend. They hold on to that 3rd and final wild card spot and have a 2-game lead for that last playoff position in the AFC.
Yeah, I'll give you the real quickly here, the Cleveland thing. 19 starts for the Browns. Watson never threw for 300 yards in his 19 starts. Winston did it in his first start. Him and Flacco have done it basically every other start. I mean, it's just amazing. It really is. So Denver, unfortunately, just a wild card team. They're not going to catch Kansas City.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the Broncos' outlook moving forward. We'll talk about the other quarterback in Bo Nix in his rookie campaign, finding his footing, and a little bit more on Jameis and the Browns up next.
Coming. Don't look like an idiot at work. Know your stuff. Football and everything else. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Travelers heading home after the Thanksgiving holiday set a record on Sunday as airport officers screened more than 3 million people. This update brought to you by Verizon. The TSA said Monday that it handled 3.09 million travelers, breaking the previous record by about 74,000. That mark was set July 7th, also a Sunday after a holiday. Hundreds of thousands of travelers were delayed or had their flights canceled. Airlines canceled about 120 U.S. flights, and more than 6,800 flights were delayed, according to FlightAware. Investigations are underway as U.S. health officials investigate a multi-state outbreak of salmonella infections linked to New Mexican-grown cucumbers. As of November 26, the FDA has reported that 68 people across 19 states have been infected with salmonella. 18 hospitalizations have been confirmed nationwide, but no deaths have been reported. Illness typically occurs within 12 to 72 hours after the ingestion of contaminated food. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Let's face it, winter can be a hard season. It's cold pretty much all the time. Blizzard. You have to shovel. Another blizzard. You slip on ice. But you know what makes winter suck a little less? Getting a free phone. Join Cricket Nation and get a free Samsung Galaxy A15 5G. Ooh, ouch. Welcome to enjoying more. Welcome to Cricket Nation. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Cricket 5G is not available everywhere. Must open a new line on the $60 unlimited plan. First month service charge and tax due at sale. Fees, terms, and other restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds, which could be life-changing. I mean, you could put that money towards concert tickets for your daughter to see that singer who sings about painful breakups. And one song will inspire your little beauty to break up with that beast she's dating, Brian. Instead, she'll date someone who's nice and worthy of her love, not someone who addresses you and your spouse as bro. And it's all because you could save money switching at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
Fall is almost here. It's time to stow the lawnmower and get ready for all that glorious action coming your way. Stay tuned to SportsGrid for all the strategies, angles, and info you need to get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network. Scott, recapping the end of Week 13 and the Monday Night Football finale last night in Denver between the Broncos and the Browns. Denver picks up its 8th win of the season, improves to 8-5 as they enter a much-awaited bye week at the last stage of this season. This upcoming week, Week 14, the last full bye week around the NFL. 6 teams will be on the bye during weekend number 14. And Scott, early in the season, Bo Nix, the rookie quarterback, drafted 12th overall, the 6th and final QB taken in the opening round of the 2024 NFL Draft, took his lumps, but learned from that experience and started to guide Denver to some wins. It felt early on, maybe this is a flash in the pan, but they would come back down to earth and probably not hold on to a playoff spot at the end of the year. Scott, entering the final 5 weeks of the season in the last 4 games for Denver, it feels like this Broncos team is going to be in the postseason. Minus 250 now for Denver to be an AFC playoff team.
Yeah, it's really, that win last night, as every win is, really is just crushing, whether you're Cincinnati or Miami. And I know both teams lost, but, realistically, if Denver would have lost again last night, then it just kind of kept Cincinnati and Miami in that position of, okay, right there, chance to make a run. But now it would take a monumental collapse, for the Broncos not to get in, Ben. Isn't it funny how it works out, right? I mean, the Broncos pay a fortune to Sean Payton to bring him in to what? To work with Russell Wilson, 1 year, and basically he's kicked out the door, even though his numbers weren't horrible last year, but obviously they didn't have the success they wanted. Everyone thought, okay, Russell's done. Everyone's questioning Sean Payton. And here we are a year later, and then they talk about Russell Wilson being done, after throwing for 400 yards out the window completely. He's having success, but with Pittsburgh, and then you bring in, a rookie quarterback, and all of a sudden, okay, it's the end for Sean Payton, and here he is at 8-5, and he's, he's got a bright future if Knicks is going to continue along this path. So it's just kind of weird. Why didn't it work out last year with Russell? I don't know, but it's obviously working out for both parties this season.
Yeah, for Denver last year, though, just a game below 500, maybe a little bit better than most anticipated. Scott, for me, I'm 9 yards away from hitting what might be my best bet ever made in an NFL offseason. Bo Nix over a season-long passing yards prop of 2,850 and a half. Bo Nix right now, 28-42 after throwing for 294 last night. A touchdown, multiple interceptions for Bo Nix in a game for the first time since the second game of his NFL career way back in week number 2. He has been pretty consistent and efficient. Honestly, 2 great plays made by Cleveland's Denzel Ward last night to have a part in both of those INTs of Bo Nix. Cortland Sutton, a huge game for this Denver team as well. Outside of that, Scott, the season-long outlook for the Broncos, as we shared, a few more divisional games still await. They'll get the Chiefs in the regular season finale at home. We'll see exactly how important that game is for KC by the time we reach the end of the season. If Kansas City needs it for playoff positioning, what that might look like, I think so, because the Bills are going to be challenging them down the stretch for that best overall record. They have the Chargers on the docket as well. Denver really should be a playoff team with that 2-game advantage. Now, as for if they were to make the postseason in that wild card spot, Scott, what might they do in the playoffs? What do you think?
Listen, they would be the first, if you were doing a draft on who you wanted to face in the postseason in the AFC, they would probably be the number 1 team, right? I don't think you'd rather face Baltimore than you would them. So I don't know about the Chargers. Maybe that would be kind of a 50-50 type of situation. But realistically, I can't see Bo Nix on the road, which is where it's going to be, going into whether it's Pittsburgh, whether it's Kansas City. Well, Kansas City would theoretically get the bye, or if it's Buffalo. They would go to maybe Houston. Could they go into Houston and win? That wouldn't be that much of a surprise. I think they could compete against Houston. That wouldn't shock me, but the other 2 would. So they're more than likely a one and done, but that's okay. Anything. They're playing with house money now. They could realistically lose every single game, not make the playoffs, and still it would be a great learning experience for Bo Nix and that Denver team. So, but more than likely a one and done.
And it will be interesting, Scott, knowing what Bo Nix has done so far this season, what it means for the Offensive Rookie of the Year race. Right now, Jaden Daniels still the heavy favorite at minus 270. And Daniels had the historic start to the season. He had 4 total touchdowns in the blowout win over the Titans at home on Sunday afternoon as well. Bo Nix did not have his best game last night, despite throwing for nearly 300 with the multiple interceptions in only 1 touchdown toss. But Scott, when you look at these 2 quarterbacks, throughout the season, we thought it might be a battle between 2 QBs for Rookie of the Year. Caleb Williams, number 1 overall. Jaden Daniels, number 2. It might be Daniels and Nix. Minus 270 for Jaden Daniels, plus 240 for Bo Nix. Both rookies have led their team to an 8-5 record at this point. It's actually Bo Nix that has a few more passing yards than Jaden Daniels. He has more passing touchdowns. He has more total touchdowns, 22 as opposed to the 21 that Daniels has. Jaden has a better completion percentage and a fewer amount of interceptions at this point. But, Scott, I actually think it's going to be a rather tight race down the stretch to see who takes home the hardware.
Yeah, it sounds strange to say, Ben, but Daniels may have peaked too soon. It's not that he's not playing great, but he's had his moment and everything. But it's almost like, okay, you're Jane Daniels, we got that, but now we got this Bo Nix story. Now the Broncos are turning into a real story, and they've overshadowed what Washington has been able to accomplish without a shadow of a doubt at this point. Now, whether that falls into the Rookie of the Year race, don't know. But think about who they're going to be playing. Kansas City last week of the regular season, chance to make a big time statement. If Kansas City especially needs that game, you go into the voting process knowing that Bo Nix just beat Patrick Mahomes and really should have beat him twice. That's I wouldn't want to be laying almost 3-1. Let's put it that way in Jaden Daniels right now.
And the odds did not move from where they were entering last night. Jaden Daniels minus 270 before. Still that case right now. But I think they will move throughout the remainder of this regular season. A little bit more on Cleveland and the rest of the news and notes you need around the National Football League. You're next on Football Full Circle. Week 13 now in the books. The final 5 weeks of the regular season, though, still very much on the horizon. What it means for the playoff picture here on FFC.
There's smart and there's not smart. Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Keep it here and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
Bob Gibson, who set a new National League record for earned run average this year.
1968, Major League Baseball adopts a series of changes designed to increase offensive run production. The strike zone was decreased and the pitcher's mound was lowered from 15 to 10 inches. Batting averages increased from 237 to 248, while pitchers' ERA jumped from 2.98 to 3.61. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Technical University of Munich researchers have developed a pair of robotic hands, sort of like an electric motor bicycle, instead making you walk or run faster. Two artificial tendons connect your thigh to your waist. Adaptive software senses your stride, affecting 18% less load on your body, like you're 20 pounds lighter. Future robotic trousers are planned to help you climb mountains. However, not recommended to use underwater. Follow me at Chicapalvo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Money line.
It's such a shame the Eagles didn't win that Super Bowl against the Chiefs, because then I could very comfortably call it the greatest coaching staff in NFL history with Sirianni, Steichen, and Gannon. Wow. When you look at some turnarounds that go on. I will say, though, Donnie, Jonathan Gannon apparently doesn't watch Old St. Nick's games.
Catch Moneyline with Donnie Rightside and Kevin Walsh. Weekdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go, there you are. Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you. So now you can get the winning edge anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you. If you've got an earbud. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. Scott, as we go around the National Football League, one final point on Monday night between the Browns and the Broncos, and then we'll set the stage for the news and notes that you need entering Week 14. As we talk about the Cleveland Browns, Jameis Winston, as we saw last year with Joe Flacco, has elevated this Cleveland offense. You heard it on the broadcast last night throughout Monday Night Football. Where would this Cleveland team be had it not been Deshaun Watson to start the year and rather Jameis Winston? And I think you can still say that, Scott, despite the fact that he threw 4 touchdowns to 3 interceptions last night. There is the good, and then there is the guaranteed bad with Jameis Winston as well. It is a really intriguing question, Scott, not for this year and what could have been, as the Browns are not going to be a playoff team. They are 3-9, and maybe they'll be slightly competitive as they have with Jameis Winston in his 5 starts for the most part. I think the question becomes moving forward. Deshaun Watson, once he returns from the torn Achilles, it's widely presumed he will never play again for Cleveland. At least that is the thought from his football perspective. But the contract perspective and all the guaranteed money and thus the dead cap hits that Watson presents to this Cleveland franchise is worth noting as well. Scott, moving forward into 2025, what do you believe the Browns' plan at quarterback will be, whether it's retaining Jameis or going out and trying to find somebody in the NFL draft?
I think that's what they probably would do, right? I mean, you got to sell your fan base something, and I just don't think they can sell another season of Deshaun Watson. They can't get rid of him. It's like a $90 million cap, and I'll look it up here in a second, but it's something ridiculous. They're locked into him for at least 1, and it might even be 2 more years. I get these guys confused at these bad contracts that I look up all the time. But that doesn't stop them from drafting a quarterback, you know. And would you be able to have someone take a flyer on Watson? I kind of doubt it with the money he's owed and the little production he showed. Right. But again, that doesn't stop you if the Browns have a top 10 pick, like at this point they figure to have, that they just, tell the world, okay, you know what, Watson's going to be on our team because we can't get rid of him. But that doesn't mean, like I said, we're going to go draft another quarterback. I would think they would do that, Ben. I mean, to go into next season thinking that Watson's going to be your answer, when you've had these backups, as we talked about, have so much success, whether it's not turning into wins for Winston, but it did last year for Flacco, both have thrown a ton of yards. I don't know how you could do that to your fan base.
Yeah, I don't either, right? I think Cleveland fans would have great issue with that, and deservedly so. And they would also say, Joe Flacco got us to the playoffs. Jameis Winston made us look like a competent NFL team offensively. Scott, in terms of the contract, the Cleveland Browns could not cut Deshaun Watson without losing tens of millions of dollars until the end of his deal through the 2026 season. He is still under contract technically, but there is the voided years in 27 and 28. So I'm not sure they're going to cut him and take on the huge dead cap hits. For instance, if they were to cut him even after June 1st this season, it would be a monumental amount of money, $92 million, that would still be on the cap. At the end of next season, post-June 1st, into the summer months, would still be $46 million. I think there's a chance that Deshaun Watson just stays on the team and is the backup. And that will be a bad recipe, perhaps, because it's kind of the black cloud that's looming. We know Deshaun Watson, at times in his career, even during his heyday in Houston, did not want to play for the Texans anymore, so thus demanded a trade in the first place before all of these sexual assault allegations were released and publicly known. It's just a bad situation, Scott. But in terms of the football perspective, you could not look at your fan base and say, when he returns from a torn Achilles at this stage of his career, he's our guy that we're trusting moving forward. You just simply can't do that.
Yeah. That, Ben, or what do you do with Kevin Stefanski? Is it his fault? Probably not. Who knows? But if you're stuck on bringing Watson back for at least 1 and realistically probably 2 more years, do you sit a guy you're paying $45 million on the bench and be that much of a problem child? Or do you get rid of the head coach and just say, sorry, Kev, you know what? It's probably not you. I get that, but we need to have someone come in and work with Watson.
Yeah, Scott, that would be the interesting thing. I'm not sure it's Kevin Stefanski's fault. I don't think his job should be on the line. He's won 2 Coach of the Year awards in the last 5 years, and obviously can elevate a team when it hasn't been Deshaun Watson. But it's an uncertain future for Cleveland moving forward. The other NFL news and notes from an injury perspective that you need moving forward up next.
The winning edge. You've got it. But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us. But we're working on that. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Monday Night Football, the Broncos beat the Browns 41-32. Jaquan McMillan returned an interception 44 yards for a game-sealing touchdown with a minute 48 left. Denver spoiled a career-best performance by Jameis Winston. He threw for a franchise record 497 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also got picked off 3 times, 2 of which were returned by the Broncos for touchdowns. On the other side, Bo Nix, 18 of 35, passing 294 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Cleveland drops to 3-9-0 with the loss, while the Broncos improved to 8-5-0. They're now riding a 3-game winning streak. Now Denver gets to rest up. They've got a bye and will host Indianapolis on December the 15th, while the Browns head to Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest. The last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Days are getting cooler and shadows are getting longer. You know what that means? It's football weather. So bundle up and keep it here for all the latest strategies and gridiron information. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
When 1 week in the National Football League concludes, the next week is never far away, just about 2 days. So let's get you set for Week 14. Scott, we have reached the point of this season. Just 5 more regular season weeks remain. We are deep in December, although it's early December. The In the Hunt graphics become a little bit more prevalent and important. So now we give you the news and notes that you need around the National Football League. Scott, a scary scene in Duval County on Sunday afternoon. Late in the opening half, Trevor Lawrence starting to slide, and as he slides to the turf, Houston's linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair hits him in a way that was graphic, dirty, and led to Al-Shaair's ejection, and of course Trevor Lawrence carted off the field with a concussion. We were expecting some discipline and a punishment handed out to Al-Shaair. The NFL League office dishing that out today. A 3-game suspension for Houston's linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair has been handed out. Scott, to me, it feels worthy. The crime fits the punishment. Punishment matches the crime. Al-Shaair suspended, though, for 3 critical games for Houston, trying to hold on to that advantage in the AFC South.
Yeah, that's big, Ben. I didn't know if they were going to suspend him at all. I thought it was worthy of a suspension, but you suspend a guy 3 games. That's a lot, right? That's But listen, you look at the tackle, and not only was it a late hit, not only was it towards the head, but he also gave him a forearm shiver to the head. So, he could sit there and say all he wants about how he's a nice guy and teammates that played with me. No, I'm not out to hurt people, blah, 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 blah. You can say all you want, but you don't take your forearm and ram it into the guy's head as he's going to the ground without some intent being there. I didn't think it was a good look for D'Amico Ryans. I don't know if you read his quote, basically blaming Trevor Lawrence for part of this. I'm like, D'Amico, listen, you may think that, and I've long said, Ben, I think this slide rule is the worst thing in the world. I've seen more quarterbacks get hurt because of that rule, in which he was alluding to by saying, you think you're safe by sliding, when in reality, you got these bozos that are trying to take your head off, and it's almost impossible to tell them to turn it off just because you're going to the ground, a half a second before you reach them. So I get that from D'Amico, but that's you don't want to say that. I mean, the poor guy's in a hospital. He just come back from an injury. One of your players, takes a forearm shiver to the guy's head, and you're going to sit there and try and blame Trevor Lawrence? Really? It's the first time anyone's kind of come up in the last couple of years with D'Amico and his Houston Texans team. It's been nothing but positives, great stories, and everything. This is the first one where it's like, really? I don't think you want to go down here, D'Amico. That's the wrong road at this point. You want to bring up the quarterback issue about sliding like I just did. Knock yourself out. Because like I said, Ben, I think that's a bad rule. I think more people get hurt because of that than actually help them because they think it's a false premise. Okay, I'm safe. I'm going to the ground. And they do go the extra yard. I mean, it's tough for that defensive player to automatically just shut it off because the guy falls to his knees. So I wouldn't have that rule. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, Scott, I agree, right? The quarterback slide is always very intriguing. And oftentimes it does result in some kind of contact, even though it's supposed to mean nothing. Because in the bang-bang action of the high-powered and violent NFL, it is difficult for the defender to stop when they are trained to play through the whistle, to bring that ball carrier to the ground. This instance, as each individual instance can be, is unique. Trevor Lawrence starts to slide well before Azeez Al-Shaair even makes contact, and after the slide is almost complete, Al-Shaair launches in that violent way that leads to targeting in college football and unsportsmanlike and unnecessary roughness calls in the National Football League. I will commend Al-Shaair, who took to social media on Monday morning to share his remorse. That takes a lot to admit that maybe you were at fault and share your apologies. Much like you, I thought D'Amico Ryans could have used a better choice of words. Stand up for your guys. Would not expect you to implicate or throw your guy under the bus, but don't blame the opposition. Maybe get mad at the rule at a later date, not in the heat of that moment. It was very interesting. Scott, for Trevor Lawrence, he tweeted out on Sunday night that he was back at home feeling okay. That's very positive signs. It's been a disappointing season for Jacksonville, to say the least, at 2-10, and the writing on the wall is there for Doug Peterson, it would seem, for some changes in the offseason for this organization. But Houston, 8-5, atop the AFC South, 2-game lead right now over Indianapolis, really is 3 because they swept the Colts in their regular season set in both of those games. Houston, more than likely, is a minus 1250 favorite, is going to win the AFC South divisional crown for a second consecutive year. The Texans are not playing a great brand of football right now. Just 3-6-1 against the spread as the favored side this season in their 13 games. Scott, we said this was going to be the case for Houston. No longer the Hunters, the Hunties at the top. And really based on some of that odds, optimism, and expectation, the Texans have faltered.
Yeah, I tell you, the other thing also, Ben, is
I believe we're having some technical difficulties there. Scott, are you back? I believe Scott.
Yeah, I think we're back now. Yeah.
Back. All right. Cool.
Just from the Jacksonville standpoint, for one more thing, I just found it curious. Like if you watch the post game press conference after Sunday's game with head coach Doug Peterson, who's clearly on the hot seat, right? And I tell you, Ben, I know there's a quote out there saying there's no place for that in the game, but that's about the only thing he said. It really was just, he was so ambivalent to that play. And as I'm watching, I'm like, man, you got to have your guys back. Instead of going out there and ripping the guy and saying it's a dirty play, an awful play, no place in our game, and really be adamant about it, he wasn't. And he was asked about it several times, and he just kind of poo-pooed it. It was almost like, as I'm watching this, I'm saying to myself, it's your quarterback that got hurt, right? It's not the other way around, right? It wasn't your guy that did the hitting. So I could see those really just like, you know what, we've had enough with Doug Peterson. If he's not going to protect our guy, we had an out brawl, right? And he's more critical of the guys in the fight. You got to maintain your composure and this and that. Come on, coach, you're 3-8. I would have been more upset if had my guys not stuck up versus what Peterson was. So I just from a betting standpoint, I wouldn't be betting Jacksonville just because I just wonder about that locker room now.
You know what's interesting, Scott, is they've actually covered in 5 of their last 6 games, which you would normally think for a coach that seems to be a lame duck with the writing on the wall. That's when a team quits and no longer tries to compete. Weirdly, Jacksonville has stayed in it. It hasn't been like the prettiest games where they've missed out or anything like that. They've kept games close. They haven't really had a lot of great opportunities to win. They ended up covering against Houston because Mac Jones threw a late touchdown when the game was multiple scores. Scott, elsewhere around the NFL, some more injury news yesterday for the 49ers. Sadly, it's been the theme of their season for San Francisco. The mounting injuries that they might not be able to overcome. Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason, both of the running backs we have seen in large part this year, placed on injured reserve for the 49ers. Their season is not technically over, but basically you can't return from injured reserve for 4 weeks, and with only 5 weeks remaining, their season is technically kind of over.
Yeah, they've switched. It used to be you looked at your schedule and you saw San Francisco and you're like, okay, that's going to be a tough game. That's a loss. That's a loss. That's a loss. Now San Francisco is looking at everyone else saying, all right, you know what? Can we beat Miami on the road? Can we beat Detroit? Probably not. Can we beat Arizona? Probably not. Now that it's completely flipped the other way.
Yeah, it really has for this San Francisco team. Scott, they're not fully out of it, which makes things interesting as well for the 49ers. Despite being 5-7, they only trail Seattle by 2 games in the NFC West. But the more damning thing for the 49ers outside of their overall record is the in-division record. They are just 1-3. They have recorded a loss against every team in the division. So those head-to-head tiebreakers, if it even came down to similar records at the end of the season, probably not going to favor San Francisco. They were over a $2 favorite, minus 210, minus 220, I believe it was, to win the division before the year got underway. They now are not only in last place, but had the longest odds at 14-1. More NFL news and notes on the other side of the break.
Yeah, it's getting cooler. Football weather is here. Stay tuned for all the latest odds, strategies, and info. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Travelers heading home after the Thanksgiving holiday set a record on Sunday as airport officers screened more than 3 million people. This update brought to you by Verizon. The TSA said Monday that it handled 3.09 million travelers, breaking the previous record by about 74,000. That mark was set July 7th, also a Sunday after a holiday. Hundreds of thousands of travelers were delayed or had their flights canceled. Airlines canceled about 120 U.S. flights, and more than 6,800 flights were delayed, according to FlightAware. Investigations are underway as U.S. health officials investigate a multi-state outbreak of salmonella infections linked to New Mexican-grown cucumbers. As of November 26, the FDA has reported that 68 people across 19 states have been infected with salmonella. 18 hospitalizations have been confirmed nationwide, but no deaths have been reported. Illness typically occurs within 12 to 72 hours after the ingestion of contaminated food. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Let's face it, winter can be a hard season. It's cold pretty much all the time. Blizzard. You have to shovel. Another blizzard. You slip on ice. But you know what makes winter suck a little less? Getting a free phone. Join Cricket Nation and get a free Samsung Galaxy A15 5G. Ooh, ouch. Welcome to enjoying more. Welcome to Cricket Nation. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Cricket 5G is not available everywhere. Must open a new line on the $60 unlimited plan. First month service charge and tax due at sale. Fees, terms, and other restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds, which could be life-changing. I mean, you could put that money towards concert tickets for your daughter to see that singer who sings about painful breakups. And one song will inspire your little beauty to break up with that beast she's dating, Brian. Instead, she'll date someone who's nice and worthy of her love, not someone who addresses you and your spouse as bro. And it's all because you could save money switching at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important. That's where we come in. SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning more often. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. Got some more news around the National Football League. Yesterday, for the first time since the in-season firing of Matt Eberflus, Bears president and CEO Kevin Warren, alongside Bears general manager Ryan Poles, met with the media to discuss what led to the dismissal of Eberflus, the timing of it all, and how the Bears are approaching their future. Kevin Warren had this to say. He believes the Bears' job will be the, quote, most coveted end quote, of all the jobs in this NFL head coaching cycle. We already have 3 open jobs. An interim head coach in Chicago, that's Thomas Brown. An interim head coach in New York, that's Jeff Ulbrich. And the interim head coach in New Orleans, that is Darren Rizzi. And Scott, as we shared, maybe some writing on the wall in Jacksonville for Doug Peterson, perhaps the case in Dallas with the lame duck head coach in Mike McCarthy. There are going to be a slew of more openings by the time all is said and done at the end of the regular season. So I would frankly contradict what Kevin Warren has to say, although the Bears should be enticing in a big market with the number 1 overall pick in Caleb Williams, who has actually showed a lot of promise in the later portion of his rookie year. And with a talented roster, the Bears find a way to take good and make it bad rather quickly. I do not believe it is the most coveted job of this coaching cycle.
Yeah, I don't think so either. You know, I mean, you can make the case. You know, you want to have the debate who's better if you were going to start a team. Trevor Lawrence at this point, Caleb Williams, Dak Prescott, right? I mean, but with all the headaches that Chicago brings, they may say they're talented, but, you know, what's that, you know, led to this season? Expectations through the roof, you know, with Dallas and with Chicago. Maybe not so as far as the pressure is concerned, but yeah, you can throw in the Giants situation. You know, if Dable doesn't come back, which, you know, chances are halfway decent anyway that he won't, there's going to be a number of different spots there that I think I would choose rather than Chicago. And you throw in the Lions aren't going anywhere, right? And it looks like Minnesota, I don't know what they're going to do with their quarterback situation, but Minnesota looks loaded as well. So you're in and Green Bay, obviously a young quarterback and Jordan Love. Point being, you're in a really tough division in that NFC North as well. So if that was going to be your tiebreaker, that would be the last division I'd want to be in as a new head coach who, you know, generally speaking, Ben, you know, but what do you have? 2.5 years, realistically, these coaches? Not like the old days, we had 5 years. Who cares? You know, teams are going to be good. They're going to be bad. You've got 2.5 years to make your mark as a new head coach. So a lot of pressure. The only thing I would think of is, you know, would they actually call up Lincoln Riley, you know, and go to him and say, hey, you know, reunite with Caleb Williams? You guys had some success in USC. Don't know if they would go that route, but otherwise, I wouldn't think they'd be any more attractive than any other spot.
Yeah, I don't either, Scott. Again, logistically, it should be. Oftentimes, for whatever reason, whether it's talent, young and promising quarterbacks, or head coaches, the Bears often get in their own way. Speaking of another interim spot, Jeff Ulbrich, the head coach currently of the New York Jets, after the Jets lost another incredibly disappointing game at home, booked as a favorite on Sunday against Seattle. He was asked after the game, Scott, about his starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, and if he would remain the starting quarterback moving forward. He was a little bit indecisive, said he had to mull it over, watch the film, see what everything looked like, which is rather non-committal when it comes to Aaron Rodgers as your starting QB. Yesterday, though, Ulbrich telling the media Aaron Rodgers gives us the best chance to win. He remains their starting quarterback. 3-9, the mark for Gang Green, 9th consecutive losing season for New York, longest active streak in the NFL. 14th consecutive season, more than likely 99.999999% chance the Jets are going to miss the playoffs. That the longest active drought, not just in the NFL, of any of the 4 major men's professional sports leagues in North America, the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL, all included. Another disappointing and disastrous season, frankly, for the Jets, Scott.
Yeah, it's been an embarrassment all around, right? I mean, whether it's the head coach who's gone, the GM who's gone, the owner who they're killing, Aaron Rodgers who's played particularly bad. I mean, it's just a lost cause. I mean, there are a number of teams, and I think the Jets might be at the top of the list, that if given the option, can we end the season right now? I think they would all say, yeah, let's just end this thing right now. I think Cincinnati would be on that list as well. Just everything has gone wrong for New York. I don't know how Rodgers – listen, whether he wants to come back, I don't know. But, you know, why would any team put any faith in him? You know, so many opportunities to win football games down the stretch when it really counts. 5 games at least. He's had the ball with a chance to tie or win the game, and he's failed all 5. I mean, that's when it really, like, okay, everyone is absolutely 100% trying, and he has failed every opportunity this year 5 times to get the team in the end zone. And a lot of those cases just need a field goal to either tie or take the lead, and he hasn't gotten it done. So Again, just like with the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson, I don't know how you would sell the fan base next year, the Jets fan base, on Aaron Rodgers is going to be our quarterback. So the whole thing's got to get imploded. It really does.
Yeah, it certainly does, Scott. This will be an organization once again starting over, building from the ground up. It hasn't been a recipe for success in recent years. Sam Darnold was a failure in New York, goes somewhere else, is having great success. Zach Wilson, of course, that did not work in New York either. The quarterback position and the inability for the Jets to figure it out at the most important spot in the NFL has continued to cost this franchise. Other interim head coach Darren Rizzi dropped his first game in New Orleans as the interim head man on Sunday. And you add on some injury to the insult, Scott. Taysom Hill out for the remainder of this season for New Orleans with a torn ACL. The Saints actually had a little bit of life in the NFC South because of the fact that two top teams in the division are just an even 500, 6-6, the Falcons and the Bucs. Atlanta has the tiebreak because they swept Tampa throughout the regular season. But, Scott, another bad blow for the New Orleans Saints in what has been a difficult year in the Big Easy as well.
Yeah, I mean, that whole division has really been bad, right? Yeah. And you got the Kirk Cousins reunion with Minnesota, but it's just been one bad division. I don't think he's coming back next season. They might be at the bottom of that list of attractiveness for new head coaching spots.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward. I got to head out. They're doing some interviews in the studio. Scott Wetzel will take you home on the other side of the break, live right here on Football Full Circle to wrap up this Tuesday. More to come after the break.
The boys of summer become the champions of fall. The World Series is on its way. And SportsGrid brings you every angle. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're going to love it, and you're going to love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
All right, welcome back. It is Football Full Circle here on a Tuesday afternoon. The one thing about this weekend's games, which Ben and I didn't get a chance to talk too much about, I tell you what, this might be the worst week of NFL games that we've had so far this season. And I don't think that's much of a stretch. I only have two games in which both teams are over 500. And oddly enough, the first one is Thursday, and then the second one is Monday night. So everything on Sunday is a bunch of losing teams or 500 teams, at least one of the two anyway. But really, listen to this schedule. You have some. Listen, the Thursday game is great, and that might be the best game on the board. Oddly enough, for Thursday, which is usually when they bury some teams, right? Well, you got Green Bay and Detroit this Thursday. 11-1 Lions and 9-3 Packers. That should be great. Right? So you think you're in for a monster week of NFL football. Then you got 2-7 Jacksonville against 3-9 Tennessee. All right, one bad game. Then you have 3-9 New York, the Jets against 5-7 Miami. All right, two bad games. Then you got 4-8 New Orleans against 2-10 New York Giants. It's 3 bad games. You do have the Falcons and Vikings. Now the Falcons are 6-6, so they're not over 500 against the Vikes. You got the Kirk Cousins angle. Kirk going back to Minnesota would have been helped out had the Falcons won and have been at least 7-5. But at least they are a first place team. Tied for first place anyway in the NFC South. So I suppose that could be billed as a halfway decent game. 3-9 Carolina against Philadelphia. Who cares? 3-9 Cleveland against 9-3 Pittsburgh. We just saw that a couple of weeks ago. I know the Browns won, but nothing great. 2-10 Tampa Bay against 2-10 Raiders against 6-6 Tampa Bay. And I don't know too many people that are going out of the way to watch that football game, right? And then your 4:00 games. On paper, it doesn't look good, but at least in the standings, it does. 7-5 Seattle against 6-6 Arizona. Again, only one winning team, but at least, it's a battle for first place in the NFC West, if you want to go that angle. Buffalo and the Rams, that's not too bad, but again, the Rams are 6-6. They're not over 500. And then the last one is Chicago and San Francisco. So you get the 4-8 Bears and the 5-7 49ers. Again, beginning of the year, that sounded like to be a halfway decent game, whereas now it's not. You got the coaches fired system in play with Chicago, but other than that, I don't know too many people that are going to go out of the way for that one. And then the Sunday night, when I said Monday night, it's actually Sunday night. They have the other game involving 2 winning teams. San Diego, LA Chargers at 8-4, and the 11-1 Kansas City Chiefs. And then the Monday nighter is Cincinnati at Dallas. Ooh, I guess they couldn't flex out of that. I mean, although they generally rarely flex out of a Dallas game, right? Dallas can be 5-7 as they are, and they would never flex out of that. So, but that's not exactly a great game with Cincinnati. So this is a good weekend to do your Christmas shopping, right? You got the Thursday game. We get that out of the way. And 1:00 games, there's not really one that I would say, okay, I got to record this one. And even the 4:00 games, I guess Buffalo and the Rams is supposed to be the headliner. You got 2 Fox games, that one and then the Bears 49ers. So I'm guessing most of the nation will see Buffalo at the LA Rams. They were helped out with the Rams winning against New Orleans. Funny how that works out, right? Sometimes you look back at these things and say, boy, Buffalo against a 5-7 Rams team, who cares? But Buffalo against a 6-6 Rams team, that's, just a game back in the loss column in the NFC West. Okay, then it's not too bad. So the networks who pay all this money were actually helped out quite a bit. As far as some of the point spreads are concerned, you got one game that's a 10-point spread or more. Philadelphia laying 12 against Carolina. Tampa Bay's a full touchdown over the Raiders. And that's really it. Everything else, Cincinnati, which I find surprising, a 5.5-point road favorite at Dallas Monday night. Who's going to the window, rushing to the window to lay nearly a touchdown on the Bungles on the road? That's almost an unbettable game. My Dolphins laying 6 against the New York Jets. I guess theoretically the Dolphins are still in it, but that Denver win last night really did hurt a lot of teams that think they're still in it, whether it's the Dolphins or the Cincinnati Bengals. Or even the Indianapolis Colts who are now a full 2 games back. You're starting to run out of games. These teams have played 13 games. You only got 4 left. Tough to make up 2 games in 4 weeks. You're asking losing teams, Colts, Dolphins, Bengals, whoever the case may be, to win all their games. If they had that ability, they wouldn't be under 500. So I think the 7 teams in the AFC and the 7 teams in the NFC that you see right now, I think those are the teams that actually get in. Outside of Tampa Bay, I think the Bucs get in over the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC South. Good job by everyone. Joe Lisi and I will be back tomorrow here on the Grid on Football Full Circle. Enjoy your day, folks.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.